Okay, guys. I guess this is a redo, but after listening to Gary Vee said, I actually wanted to make it a little bit interesting for you, since I haven't been in a right mindset to do videos like this. You know, people, we're gonna talk about things that matters to you as an individual, or matters to anyone who's listening to this who come here for a particular reason. You're searching for the good life. You're searching for something that you always wanted. That's what inspired me to create this YouTube channel. The reason why it's called Genesis Personal Transformation, there's a reason for it. Every time you fall, every time you forget the principles, every time you forget the fundamental, you go back to the beginning. That's why it's Genesis. Genesis, the beginning. But the Ouroboros, if you don't know what that is there's no end to it. There's an infinity. But I want to talk about something that, there was a video that, Gary was in, and there was this guy, and, they were talking about millennials, and whether it's, I remember my friend said he don't like the word millennials. Yes, I guess millennials has a bad rap after I hear about it. But let me inspire you with a story of mine about how I grew up, about life. I realize when I do interviews, I realize there's people who were amazing, and I'm grateful for them. And while they're on my YouTube channel, one particular reason why I do this is to connect the dots between people, and from languages to martial artists to life coach, whatever that is. In life, I realize why I do this YouTube channel, why I realize I bring guests on here, and why I want to help promote them, because I like what they do. They're good people. Even if I'm having the hardest time of my life, for God's sake, I was having the hardest time of my life. But through those hard times, I realized good things can happen to me. That's why when for example, I'm happy and grateful to do an interview with amazing people like Renee, Wade, all the Tiffany Haman, all these amazing people, and they're doing the best they can for people. But because it's out of those painful moments you want. I was going through, I was walking, and I was buying a gift card. It's my childhood, or not childhood, my teens time, where I played cards with my friends. Books have served its purpose for me now. Now I make it more simpler. I don't complicate things, but books are still good. People still need to read books, but if you don't want to read books, that's okay. Just listen to audio. But there's always a way to learn, right? Videos. Interviews has served its purpose for me, but I still will do interview for them. I have grown out of books. I have grown out of interviews. But whether to say, I was listening to this guy, should millennial be told what to do? Well, I don't know what millennials you're talking about or mine, but I come from a background of, I told this story before, but I will tell you from a deeper perspective. I live in a bilingual home, which means that I live in a home where my mother does not speak English, but she speaks Vietnamese, and I have to speak Vietnamese to her. So I guess that's why they put me in the special education system. But I grew up, wasn't surrounded by books. I wasn't surrounded by the things that people take for granted nowadays. And we wasn't born and raised in a home that we have surrounded by the thing that we wanted. As a kid, I didn't have things that most kids have. As growing up, it was really hard. I'll tell you. When I was growing up, I grew up poor. And we were going through the hardest time of our life. And, I remember as a kid, my mom always telling me that, I have to look after the my brothers. Because as Asian in Vietnamese family, the older brother had to take care. Whoever the oldest, you had to take care of them. So when I was little, I did take care of them. I watch over them, feed them or whatever. And I guess, and then I have to go shopping for my mother. And I remember as a kid growing up, it was so hard. I hated life because, we had to walk, go to school, and I remember we had to take bus and stuff like that. And I remember when I was going shopping, I hated shopping for food, for groceries. And I remember walking home. At that time, we didn't have the thinking where we can push the cart. But I remember it was so heavy to carry the grocery bag. And I was thinking, wow, this is so heavy. Why? All these stuff that happens because most of the time, I don't know about other millennials, but me, I don't want to do those things anymore, right? It sounds like cliche, but I still do them. But for me, I told myself that I stopped. I still care for my brothers and I still love them. But I stopped being the older brother for me, I don't want to be the older brother. Because I got tired of the people will say, oh, that's unresponsible. But if you think about it, when I was younger, I had a lot of stress. I had a lot of burden that was put on me. That I had to do all these things for the family. Right? And it was so hard. I was struggling from going to school and thinking, how can I make this possible? And I was going back. I was just, when I wanted to graduate high school with my friends, but I am not graduating from high school. So life took me to a different direction. And, life, when you're living a life at a place that is not really good. I remember when we start moving to a place where we live, it wasn't a good place to live. It was really bad. I remember first time people make fun of us, people call us names. Then they throw rocks at us when we were little. And I didn't like that life. And I was wondering why we lived that life. And I remember there was a kid who was bullying my sister, so I come up and protect her. But I guess everybody, there was a whole community, neighborhood. They thought that we were doing something wrong, so they gang on us. So we have the hardest life. So I guess you get sick and tired of living that life. Well, in my perspective, I got sick and tired of living that life. To say that, I do care, right? But, I remember going through all my hardest time. I was wondering it always was for my family. I guess when I was, child, I always try to do it for the family. And, I try to make it happen for them. But then it slipped. It cracked. I slipped. In those moments of time that I slipped and cracked, I guess they understood what I went through, but they didn't really understand what I went through. And those time, everything just went haywire. So I stopped believing the notion of the thing that people told us what to do, because I get, people as they grow older, they stop believing in the impossible things that they can do. They just think, to be able to live, to be able to say, like, that's it. You're gonna live and die, and you're not gonna do anything else. Work your whole life, and you're not going to live a amazing life. You're not gonna do, no, they don't care about, people only care about, trying to keep up with the Jonases or whatever that is, whatever, But for me, it was a different story. I always wanted a change in my life. I always want something different happen in my life, because I had this book in my hand. And I made it, but it was for me. I showed this before, but I made it for me. And it's gonna cut off, but I made it for me. And in that, I write, for as long as I can remember, I was never a lucky guy. I was the kind of guy who didn't do anything wrong and get blamed for it. My whole life, all I wanted was a different life than this, but one day my life changed for the better, I hope. The gods and the Buddhas grant me a life that I always dream of. In a few moments, I will tell them who I am and how I ended up here. So in a nutshell, I wanted my life to go in a different direction than my life that I was heading toward. And so I think that the lesson here is, whatever happened in life, things will happen to you. And you never expected that would happen, but it's going to happen, right? And knocked off whatever your game or your dreams or whatever, it delayed you or derailed you. And you lose faith in yourself, you lose faith maybe a little bit in people, maybe. Well, I still have faith in people, whatever they do. I have horrible stories that I could tell, but you start losing faith in something greater than yourself. You start losing faith in a lot of things when you have those darkest time in your moments. But the thing is, I remember back, the story is, the darkest time is where the growth happened, where things just collide and you start to see things at a whole nother level that you never saw before, right? And this video is to be able to help myself understand about my growth. It's all about growth, about understanding, about the journey that you're going through, or a process, and the mindset that we must shift, right? But every time bad things happen, or every time hard time or chaos happen in the mix, good things tend to happen for me. And oftentimes when we feel pain, feel something of that nature, we want to help people, we want to inspire people, we want to do something for people, because you don't want them to go through that hard time, right? Because they care. And so I have two books in my hand. And these two books, Think and Grow Rich and Mastery, I think that's why I make my bookshelf simpler. Because it's about mastery. It's about doing the boring things. Because, there was one phase in my life that I left now. Because basically maybe the reason why I read all these books is so I can... It's done.